A University of Utah coach accused of emotionally abusing his athletes. What the school's investigation says really happened and where the program goes now.
Something the city says has never been done in Utah before, a new approach to helping those experiencing homelessness here in our community.
We saw some isolated showers today, but what about tomorrow and for the weekend? How's the weather shaping up?
It's a mysterious but holy place in the middle of a Utah city.
Because they don't see the nuns, but they should know, believe that we're here praying for them.
I go inside the Carmelite monastery for a glimpse at a world almost nobody gets to see.
He made his dream come true with a winter's worth of hard work.
I wanted him to learn, what it is to value an actual dollar.
How this Utah boy shoveled his way to the happiest place on earth.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
The University of Utah Athletics Department has released the results of an outside review of the Red Rocks gymnastics program and head coach Tom Fardon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Evans.
And I'm Kelly Chapman. That review found that Fardon's behaviors did not amount to severe, pervasive, or egregious acts of abuse or harassment.
Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold has been following the story since we learned of the investigation 2 weeks ago. He joins us tonight in studio. Chris.
Well, good evening, Bob and Kelly. Well, Coach Fardon was found to not have engaged in abuse or harassment. The school's athletic director says there were a handful of instances in the review in which the coach should have demonstrated greater compassion, self-control, and better professionalism. It also found Fardon's actions caused some student athletes to feel increased fear of failure and pressure to retain scholarships. I spoke with two former gymnasts about the results from the review earlier tonight.
I don't think I've ever met someone that loves gymnastics the way that he does. I think that he's a little bit of a perfectionist in his ways.
This is Sydney Solosky describing her experience being coached by Tom Fardon. She spent 5 years as part of the Red Rocks before graduating in 2022.
I was really shocked at first to hear about some of the allegations and whatnot.
Back in June, the university had Hush Blackwell, an out-of-state law firm, conduct an external review into the women's gymnastics program related to the health and well-being of student athletes. This comes after the university's student-athlete advocate met with several students in March related to reported concerns regarding Coach Fardon. The investigation came about after claims of emotional abuse and physical intimidation that were made by Fardon.
I was really relieved and happy that the university chose to go through with, the investigations and really take the matter seriously, because I do feel like, everyone's story does deserve to be told.
45 total individuals, including all 12 student athletes from the 2022-2023 team, were interviewed during the review.
I was also part of the review, I was one of the 45 people.
Like Crystal Issa.
I was part of the team for a lot of these experiences, allegations, and it was just a lot to process, and it still is, honestly.
One of those allegations spelled out in the review, where Fardon told one of his gymnasts, quote, that if she was not at the university, she would be a nobody working at a gas station in her hometown.
He owned up to this comment, which I think says a lot in itself. It is hard to own up to those words and acknowledge that you did say those words to someone, let alone your own gymnast.
Something the school found to be personally degrading and said it was in violation of the athletics well-being policy, which prohibits the use of degrading language. I reached out to the university Thursday afternoon and was sent this statement from Coach Fardon. He says, in part, I care deeply about the health, safety, and well-being of every student whom I'm entrusted to coach, to mentor, and to support as head coach of the Utah gymnastics program. He goes on to say, with that privilege comes great responsibility, and I take very seriously the concerns that were expressed about my behavior and my coaching methods. It has been painful to learn of the negative impacts that my words and actions have created, and I've thoroughly examined the accounts of every person who shared their experience through their participation in the program review. Well, in response to the report, the Department of Athletics says they will implement Hush Blackwell's 5 recommendations. That includes creating and managing a performance improvement plan for Coach Fardon, including training in appropriate communication with student athletes, leadership and emotional intelligence, for interactions with student athletes, to working to communicate with involved parents in the program, and assigning more leaders from the athletic department to attend more practices and conduct regular and document meetings with the women's gymnastics program. Now, review into the program initially came about after 3 student athletes entered the transfer portal back in the spring. It's worth noting that in the conclusion of the review, it was stated that if a trend towards transfers from the program continues, the university may consider further review and modification to any recommendations that are implemented. In studio, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Chris, thanks so much. Now to an update on the homeless crisis in Salt Lake Valley. Tonight, we're learning of a first-of-its-kind approach in Utah.
Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi shares details about a plan for a new temporary shelter community in Salt Lake City.
This empty lot on the corner of 3rd South and 6th West.
It's hope that it's going to get better for the people out here.
Will transform to a place where around 50 people experiencing homelessness can temporarily call home.
The temporary shelter community will not only provide critical relief, it will center compassion and humanity in every action.
The city's plan is to have individual units, which is unlike other congregate shelters. This sanctioned camp would be a place for people to have a whole unit to themselves.
Each one of these units, it's 4 walls, a door that you can lock. Your personal belongings will be safe. Your person will be safe. It will be heated and cooled. There'll be a heating and cooling unit for every one of these non-congregate units. There'll be lighting, outlets, electricity.
There will be security and access to other resource services to help move people to a more permanent home. Community organizations are excited about the potential for this space.
This place is going to help. I think it's always going to help. Whenever you have something that is sanctioned, that is validated by the city, so that the police can't come in and take their stuff outright, that's always a good thing.
The city and state are working on finding a provider who can build and manage the space.
But here, there can be a sanctuary for them.
Ksenia Kinazeva with the Nomad Alliance hopes that the city consults organizations that work on the ground with people experiencing homelessness.
They do not trust the big institutions that have been serving them for so long because they've squandered that trust by not following through on what needs to be done to get the people help when they need it. And so we believe that it needs to be a grassroots effort. We love this population. We know them by name. We've served them for years.
Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall acknowledged that this isn't enough to help every person experiencing homelessness in our community, but hopes that it's a step forward to finding a more sustainable solution. Now, this is only phase 1 of the project. They hope to use what they learned from this phase to implement phase 2 to find a more permanent solution for those experiencing homelessness. In downtown Salt Lake City, I am Maithili Gubi, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Did you notice in Maithili's story there, the wind was blowing today?
Well,
that's good.
Yeah.
Anything blowing in, Allison?
Well, a cold front has moved through, so our temperatures are going to be rather comfortable for tomorrow afternoon. Just a tiny bit below average, and then this weekend's going to be fantastic. Here in Salt Lake right now, the wind is quite a bit calmer than it was during our afternoon shows and when it was closer to 15 to 20 miles per hour. But for right now in Salt Lake, it's about 70, 72 for Ogden, 68 degrees in Provo. Temps right now, 50s and 60s for the most part. We head into tonight and we'll have 40s and 50s as you wake up tomorrow morning. A little bit of precipitation across southern Utah and off to our south today, where we're still seeing a little bit of storm activity, a little bit of lightning near Canyonlands National Park, but mainly looking at a mostly clear condition for much of the Wasatch Front this evening, and that'll drop us into the 50s for Salt Lake, Ogden, and for Provo tonight, under mostly clear sky. So heading into our overnight hours, we're going to have a chilly start tomorrow morning. We're going to have a fantastic weekend. I'll let you know when we'll see an even bigger cool down coming up.
Can't say it enough. I'm sure you know it. Hard work definitely pays off.
It does.
One Utah boy, he worked all last winter so he could go to the happiest place on earth.
Now, Fox 13 News reporter Jenna Bree shows us how this West Jordan 6-year-old made his dream come true in a way that is positively Utah.
Bentley Evans always dreamed of going to Disneyland.
Disneyland is probably one of the funnest places in the United States.
He came to his parents for support.
Obviously, us as parents, we can give him the money and we can pay for everything, but I wanted him to learn, what it is to value an actual dollar.
Brett Evans told his son he could earn money by helping people. That's when Bentley had the idea.
I really wanted to go snow shoveling.
There were plenty of community members in need of his services. Bentley was able to raise $3,300 for his trip, which he just returned from this week.
He wanted to go to the restaurants, and he paid for the restaurants. He paid for, his own collectible little stuff from Disneyland.
Bentley plans to get out the snowblower and shovel again this winter so he can fund his next great adventure. In Salt Lake City, Jenna Bree, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Good for him.
Yes, isn't that something?
Congratulations.
6 years old and $3,300 shoveling snow.
He did it. Hopefully he had a great trip. Still a lot more to come tonight.
A 14-year-old is in the hospital in critical condition after he was hit in a crosswalk on his way to school. Why police say this could have been prevented.
We've got a lot of tourism here. We've got a lot of great things happening.
For the first time in Utah history, Carbon County is no longer producing coal. Why it's been phased out and what the county's economy will look like now.
It's not easy. I never say it's an easy life, but it's a beautiful, fulfilling life.
They live a life sheltered from society and dedicated to worship. A rare look as I go inside the Carmelite Monastery in Holiday in a story you will only see on Fox 13 News.
And Big 12 conference play finally underway for BYU athletics, beginning with women's soccer's debut tonight.
Well, this weekend, an annual event to benefit an order of Catholic nuns is back. It's the Carmelite Fair. There's a pretty good chance you may have never heard of the Carmelite nuns, even though they've been living their vocation in Utah for decades now. These Catholic women lead a devout life of prayer so intense they don't leave their grounds, and the outside world rarely gets a look inside. But tonight is one of those rare occasions as I share my visit inside the monastery to learn more about the ministry and how the sisters are praying for you. On 8 acres of land in Holiday,
we are so blessed to be here.
Sits the Carmel of the Immaculate Heart of Mary Monastery.
You have such beautiful grounds here. It's a big piece of land.
So this is our world.
It's here where 11 cloistered Catholic Carmelite nuns live, fulfilling their 3 vows: poverty, chastity, and obedience.
Every day, we sisters get up at about 5:15 and we prepare ourselves.
Dressed always in a full habit to emphasize their dedication to the Lord. Prayer is the forefront of the sisters' days.
6.5 hours a day that we pray.
The cloistered lifestyle means the nuns never leave the monastery and don't allow the outside world in. My visit, a major exception to the rule. Superior Mother Therese, the only nun to speak on behalf of the community as the prioress or head of the organization. Normally communicating behind these iron bars, symbolizing the separation from modern society and the nuns' union with God.
This vocation, in the eyes of the world, is not an easy vocation.
In hopes of raising awareness, I was warmly invited behind the monastery walls to the ever so holy order that came to Utah 71 years ago.
That year, 1952, Bishop of Salt Lake City reached out to the bishop in Los Angeles and asked him if he had any Carmelite nuns to send to Salt Lake City. And that was the beginning.
2 of the original sisters, both now in their 90s, still live at the monastery. The youngest sisters in their 30s, all of them participating in the structured and strict life of modification. Limited electricity and heat, no air conditioning, conservative amounts of food, and a detachment from advanced society.
We don't watch TV or radio here.
You don't go to a shopping mall?
Oh, no, definitely.
You don't?
Absolutely no shopping mall.
A concert or a
No,
movie?
that is, no. It's our spirit. We would like to just stay at the monastery, to offer everything we can to serve God only. We don't want the world to take any part of our life.
In this modern world, how are you able to do
Really,
it?
we cannot do it. Humanly speaking, we cannot. So the fact that we're here is all thanks to the glory of God.
How do you find out about things that are happening in the world?
People call us, they email us, and that is our main communication with the world. We receive letters a lot, asking us to pray for their family member who are sick.
And you do that?
Oh yes, we take it very seriously.
So of every sphere, and yet two loving hearts held near.
7 times a day, when the bell rings throughout the monastery, the nuns depart from their work. Things like sewing, cooking, and making communion hosts, to come together to pray in groups and self-meditate. Telling me from the outside looking in, people have a hard time understanding the overwhelming feeling of satisfaction their lifestyle provides.
Oremus, omnipotens et Deus. So I don't know what else that people think that we're missing out. Truly, I don't feel sorry for myself at all. I don't feel sorry for the nuns at all. None of that. We feel so blessed. We feel we have everything.
But despite their spiritual happiness, Mother Therese says the act of prayer is disappearing in households all over the world.
The most serious problem that I, as a religious, see right now, people losing their faith in God. They put their faith in things that are not important. We pray that humanity repent and come to a back. They don't have to be Catholic. As long as they believe, they will find peace.
So in the shadows of the Utah mountains, the nuns believe in the peace and harmony within the Carmelite monastery. Their light in a sometimes dark world, and they pray a beacon for all people near and far.
Here in Utah, here at this humble monastery, there is a group of nuns who pray for them day and night.
It was a fascinating, inspiring look inside. Yes. The Carmelite Fair will be held from 11 to 5 this Sunday at the Carmelite Monastery grounds and Holiday, while of course the nuns will be inside their home while the public is there. There will be food, entertainment, a live and silent auction, handmade goods, also children's games. Really, truly a lot of fun every year, and all of the proceeds go directly to the sisters, as this fair and donations are the only means of finances for the nuns.
6 hours of prayer a day they do, correct?
6.5 hours.
6.5 hours. And they'll pray for anyone. You were telling me before.
They get letters, emails, people asking, all over the world for a special intention.
Can you call them up and ask them to pray for you?
Absolutely. In fact, they encourage it. And they said they are constantly praying for the communities all throughout the state of Utah and the individual families and their needs.
Isn't that something?
What a fascinating story, just seeing a look inside a life where they've got such limited access and they're so busy working for their community. Great story, Kelly. As we look at our forecast here across the state, we had a beautiful evening. If you were able to get outside tonight, here was the view in Bluffdale. In case you weren't able to see our gorgeous and somewhat unique sunset, thank you to Paul for sharing this picture in our Facebook group, Utah's Weather Authority. Right now it's about 70 degrees here in Salt Lake. Beautiful night, rather calm right now. We do have the opportunity for a little bit of a breeze this evening with mostly clear sky. For the Wasatch Front tomorrow morning, cool and clear. You'll want to grab a sweatshirt or a sweater as you're heading out the door tomorrow, especially for the kids for school. It'll be a sunny and mild day, so you want to make sure when it's 80 degrees that they bring that sweater home from school. Air quality will be moderate for tomorrow. We've got temps here across the state. Right now, many of us are about 55 to 65 degrees, running a little bit warmer for Salt Lake and Ogden right now. We look across the board. We've had a few showers across southern Utah today. We did have a little less than half of an inch of rain in the Capitol Reef area. We had no instances of flash flooding today, which was great news, especially in a saturated southern Utah, especially with some communities that have already had some problems this week. A little bit of storm activity down towards Canyonlands, but for tomorrow, happy to report that we are not expecting flash flooding in Glen Canyon, the Swell, and Zion National Park. However, we do still have a possible rating for the rest of our recreation areas tomorrow. So if you're in town visiting, you want to make sure that you are checking in with the visitor's office or your local Bureau of Land Management to make sure a hike that you're interested in doing will be safe. But it looks like most of the strongest storms for tomorrow that could produce isolated flash flooding will be into Colorado. So for us here across Utah tonight, we're going to have our temperatures dropping. 10 o'clock tonight, we're still about 60 to 70 for the Wasatch Front. Into tomorrow morning, we're looking at 40s and 50s, so close to 40 in Park City tomorrow morning, near 40 in Ely, 45 for Elko. St. George tomorrow morning about 60 to 65 degrees. Cedar 49. I just had a viewer write in Beaver saying things are getting very chilly there. We're going to have a chilly start just across the board tomorrow, but in some areas it'll be worse than others. Salt Lake mid 50s, rising tomorrow to about 80 degrees. St. George will start in the 60s tomorrow morning. Low 60s though at 8 a.m. Temperatures then tomorrow in the upper 80s. So Friday. So finally Friday, it's going to be a beautiful day. We'll still see a tiny bit of lingering moisture across southern Utah where we could see a little bit of isolated rain, but for the most part, many of you will be dry for the entire weekend. For St. George, your temperatures upper 80s for tomorrow, low 90s on Saturday, 94 on Sunday. And for the Wasatch Front, we're in the 80s through next Wednesday. Then we could see a cool down end of next week. More on that possibility of storms to wrap up next week coming up. We'll be right back.
In national news, Hunter Biden was indicted today on federal firearms charges. This comes after a plea agreement with prosecutors fell apart. The president's son is accused of lying about his drug use when he bought a firearm in October of 2018. It was a time when he acknowledged struggling with addiction. Hunter Biden's lawyer argues that he did not violate the law.
The United Auto Workers Union is still nowhere near agreeing on contract terms with Detroit's three big automakers. That means a strike could happen just before midnight Eastern Time. That's a little more than a half hour from now. Union leaders say they are ready to walk if no deal is reached. The UAW wants a 36% pay increase for its workers over 4 years. Automakers have countered with offers of half that. We're watching for that, and we'll have an update at the top of the hour on Fox 13 News Quickcast.
For the first time ever, Carbon County is no longer producing coal. Let that sink in.
A 14-year-old is in the hospital in critical condition after he was hit in the crosswalk on his way to school. Coming up, why police say it was preventable.
Video of shocking driving behaviors on one of Utah's most dangerous roads.
And later in sports, Weber State on what they have to do to pull another marquee upset this season. But the Utes will be tough.
A new state report says that for the first time in Utah history, Carbon County is no longer actively producing coal.
Fox 13 News reporter Ben Winslow takes us there.
My dad was a coal miner for 20 plus years, raising me.
At the Coyotes Well coffee truck in Price.
It's just kind of been a thing in my family for generations and generations. And my generation, me and my cousins, were the first ones so far that haven't done that yet.
Ryan Madsen serves up cups of joe to miners.
It is the main industry in Carbon County. A lot of people that live here work in the coal mines still.
But a new report by Utah's Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining says that for the first time, coal is not actively being produced in Carbon County, the industry's namesake.
Carbon County has a long history of coal production in Utah, but there's been lower and lower coal demand over the last several years. And the mines in Carbon County were some of them that had to close. And there's been an increase recently in coal demand, but now the problem is finding people to work in the mines.
The last Carbon County mine closed in 2019. The coal that is mined comes from neighboring counties.
Because of this shift, the tax that used to be paid by the infrastructure, by the operating mines,
has now been shifted to the homeowner. So that's been a little bit of a challenge for Carbon County.
Shani Wilson is the head of economic development and tourism in Carbon County.
We've got a lot of tourism here. We've got a lot of great things happening. So, and those things are going to help sell, what we have to these companies. So they might invest in coming here.
She says they're actively working to diversify their economy, luring in some new business and industries, and there's some promising prospects.
It gives me hope that, at least one, if not all, will start breaking ground and bring in new industry, bring in new jobs.
It's unclear if the mines will ever reopen. State officials say another mine could open soon in Utah.
But the long-term prospects for coal mining look a little bleak.
Madsen says she supports a diversifying economy, but also doesn't want to forget where they came from.
You can't just take somebody who's worked in the coal mine for 30 years and say, sorry, go to school. It's not very fair. So I think that we just need to think about them as we move forward.
When it comes to energy policy in this region, Governor Spencer Cox's administration has been pushing a diversified portfolio. With a number of coal-fired power plants in the area due to retire soon, they're looking at other industries, including the idea of small-scale nuclear energy. In Carbon County, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee has officially endorsed Salt Lake City as the American bid city for an upcoming Winter Olympics.
It's pretty exciting. Bid organizers have touted Salt Lake City, which hosted the Winter Games in 2002, as the most ready, also most flexible city to host in either 2030 or 2034. Sweden, Switzerland, and France all have discussed a possible 2030 bid. The chairman of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee says the U.S. bid remains flexible, but it would prefer hosting in 2034. Fox 13 News spoke with Fraser Bullock today, leader of the Salt Lake Organizing Committee.
The best timetable we understand today is that we could be invited by the IOC into this next step of negotiating a contract by the end of this year, and that the games would be awarded, whether that's 2030 or 2034, probably by the Paris Games or at the Paris Games next summer.
Bullock says the move for the IOC to endorse Salt Lake was expected, but he says it is still a major milestone in the bid process. In other developing news, a Heber City 14-year-old now in critical condition after being hit on his way to school just this morning.
Police tell Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser the driver tried to stop, but it was too late.
If you're driving down 1200 South, right by the Heber Valley Hospital, the giant crosswalk isn't hard to miss.
Stopped on both sides of the road, so people had noticed that the lights were on.
A Wasatch High student was riding his bike to school Thursday morning when he did what you're supposed to do. He hit the button and entered the crosswalk. Once the lights started flashing, a person driving a work van didn't see him in time.
We're about 30 feet of skid mark, so he had stopped or tried to stop prior to hitting the student, but they continued about 50 feet after that.
Just a few days ago, a Sunset 13-year-old was hit riding his bike home from school, and already this month, 2 other teens in separate incidents died also on their bikes.
It's just indicative of the fact that our transportation system isn't that safe.
That's Chris Wiltsey, co-director of Bike Utah. He says there has to be bigger solutions out there aside from just telling drivers to pay attention.
But what we really need to do is redesign our streets to be safe, particularly around schools. I think that is like our low-hanging fruit.
Sergeant Joshua Weischer says the Heber City boy was rushed to Utah Valley Hospital and is there in critical condition.
An unfortunate event that happened this morning. Preventable, of course, but still unfortunate.
Sergeant Weischer says it's too early in the investigation to determine if speeding or distracted driving could have been a factor. The driver of the van was charged with failure to yield to a pedestrian's right-of-way in a school crosswalk. Reporting in Heber City, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Still to come, statistics show Highway 6 between Spanish Fork and Green River is a dangerous road. We'll share more of this stunning video of very dangerous driving sent to Fox 13 News in our latest Driven to Change report.
And we'll take you to southern Utah, where there was a big fundraiser to help the victims of the wildfires on Maui. Many Utahns consider U.S. Highway 6 between Spanish Fork and Green River to be dangerous.
And we have video of some of that dangerous behavior that lead people to feel that way and also now wonder how it can be fixed.
Fox 13 News reporter Darian DeBrule shares their concerns and the disturbing video.
When I got home, I was like, I'm going to post this on the internet because I want people to see how dangerous Highway 6 is.
Video taken by Carrie Palmer on US 6 shows not one, not two, but 4 cars passing double yellow lines to pass a semi-truck.
It was like 5 or 6 vehicles before I even started recording. And I was watching them and I kept telling my husband, like, they're going to kill somebody.
Both Palmer and Stephen Pogue have been indirectly impacted by a crash on US 6.
In 2018, me and my sister-in-law pulled up on a 2-car crash. And I'll never forget that. That will forever stick in my head about like trying to like get this man out of his car that's already deceased.
2 of our friends from right here in the neighborhood were out there last Saturday returning from a service project when the other driver crossed over and hit them head on, and they're both very badly hurt.
Palmer and Pogue say the risky characteristics of the road combined with impatient drivers has caused too many injuries and deaths.
It's a mountain roadway that is a windy roadway, 2-way traffic. There's no positive median barrier there.
The Utah Department of Transportation has heard concerns about US 6 for years, and in the past 18 of them has invested over $148 million to improve the safety of the road. Some improvements include widening the road to 4 lanes in certain areas and installing barriers in some parts, also creating passing lanes, among other things. But Palmer and Pogue say more still needs to be done.
It would be amazing to see more law enforcement out on that road, pulling people over, honestly giving tickets. We need to have 4 lanes. We need to have more legal passing.
UDOT is planning to invest more funding into US 6 improvements, but drivers also need to do their part.
Paying attention to your lane travel to make sure that you're staying within your lane. Fatigue sometimes becomes an issue, so if you're starting to get tired and or distracted, make sure that you remedy those situations before a tragedy does occur.
Drive carefully because the life you cost might not just be yours, it could be other people.
At US 6, Darian DeBrule, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Fox 13 News is driven to change to make our roads safer. If you witness hazards on the road, notice dangerous driving habits, have concerns about road safety, or think you have a solution to any of these issues, send an email to news@fox13now.com.
Well, today's temperature is almost perfectly average. We made it to 81 degrees today. Sun will rise tomorrow at 7:07, but what can you expect for the weekend? Your forecast is coming up.
And later in sports, huge night down in Provo for BYU women's soccer and athletics in general. Plus, counting down to week 3 of the college football slate. Weber State may have pulled a big upset last season, but can they hang with the Utes this week? Back in a bit.
Woo, check that out.
How do they do that?
I want to learn. I don't know. The Southern Utah Pacific Islanders Coalition hosted a benefit fundraiser last night to help loved ones devastated by the wildfires in Maui. This is in southern Utah. There was hula dancing, fire dancing, and plenty of music. Organizers say this came together in just a couple of weeks.
I've got a lot of people that I know that entertain, and so just some phone calls and texts get sent out, the word spreads like wildfire, and many folks started reaching out to us. Hey, I have this to donate. My daughter can sing. What can we do to help? Do you need help setting up? Just, our community is amazing.
Looks like it was a success. Last night in Hurricane, this event was held. If you would like to help the Southern Utah Pacific Islander Coalition, you can donate to their Venmo account. It's at SUPIC.
Tonight, Utahns were able to see the best of Mill Creek. From 4 to 8 p.m. this evening, more than 40 local businesses came together for the Mill Creek Business Market.
Kind of a job fair, so 20 businesses are hiring, but it's also a fun market, so these businesses are also selling their items, and we're hoping that it'll really help with economic development and showcase these local entities that are so great to Mill Creek.
Many came to shop local and see a wide range of products such as permanent jewelry, boba drinks, henna tattoos, and more. All of this was at the Mill Creek Common. This Saturday they will be celebrating Magenta, a celebration of Latin and Hispanic heritage. Allison.
Nice weather for those events today, and I did want to show you that we've got some pictures starting to come into the Utah's Weather Authority Facebook group of the fall colors starting to change. Now, this was taken at Immigration Canyon, and I can already tell just by the picture, yes, it's beautiful. Thank you to Scott for sharing this. It's very patchy right now, so if you were hoping to go on a fall drive this weekend, you might come across a few areas with a little bit of color, but we are still several weeks away from seeing those peak gorgeous fall drives. But of course, it's always nice to get up into the mountains, right? Salt Lake City right now is about 70 degrees, full visibility, rather light wind, but we'll see a little bit of a breeze tonight at times, again tomorrow night. Temperatures right now 60s and 70s here for the Wasatch Front. We had some flash flood threats today. We saw no flash flooding though, but we had that potential across southern Utah. Happy we got through that. For tomorrow, our heaviest rainfall will be into Colorado. We've got temperatures that are going to be cool tomorrow morning thanks to a cold front, and our weekend weather is looking phenomenal. I think you're really going to enjoy this weekend's forecast. So right now, still seeing a little bit of lingering rain down towards Canyonlands. We had a little bit of lightning earlier in the hour, but that has died down. Still some rain into northern Arizona, but overnight tonight, we'll keep the chance for a little bit of isolated activity down towards the Four Corners, but mostly clear sky for a majority of Utah tonight will lead to 40s and 50s for tomorrow morning. So we'll have that crisp start to your Friday. And then, dare I say, a top 10 weather day tomorrow? On a Friday?
What?
Top 10 for the year, yeah.
You joke me.
I'm gonna call it 70 to about 80 degrees for a high tomorrow on a Friday. I think people are really going to enjoy it.
That's some computer of yours, I tell you what, man.
So for tomorrow, our upper moisture forecast brings the precipitation off to our east. So we've got high pressure building as we head into this weekend, which means really great weather for you. We'll keep that going, and then the end of next week, we're going to potentially see some storms move in from the north. And that's going to bring us cooler temperatures end of next week. So next weekend, September 23rd-ish, things aren't looking as hot as they're going to this weekend. So that's why you'll want to enjoy this weekend for several reasons. Gorgeous this weekend, potential for some additional rain into next week. For Provo, we do have, again, a chance for some rain end of next week, but generally speaking, really nice forecast. St. George tomorrow, 87, low 90s this weekend, and for the Wasatch Front, 81 tomorrow, low 80s Saturday, Sunday, into the 60s by next Thursday.
A couple years ago, BYU Athletics took a major stride forward by accepting an invitation to join the Big 12. In the coming weeks and months, every sport will eventually make their conference debut, but it all started tonight down in Provo with women's soccer. The top-ranked Lady Cougars hosting former Mountain West Conference foe TCU to start, where it only took the Horned Frogs 2 minutes to score. Gracie Bryan, they would later go up 2-0 before Blue fired up the machine. Rachel McCarthy off the set piece before the half. Then in the second, BYU adds the equalizer, Allie Fryer, after the lead there from Olivia Katoa. But credit TCU, they get the lead back with 30 minutes to play. 7 Castaigne on the header. The Lady Cougs would not win it, but they wouldn't lose either. Aaron Bailey with the right cleat in the 77th to preserve the 3-3 draw. Week 2 of the National Football League underway. The former Ute Britton Covey, on and off again from the practice squad, receives an early punt for the Eagles. Ball popped out of there, but Philly lucky to recover, and Green led the Vikings at the half. Jalen Hurts with the QB sneak. Hurts then engineering 2 more scores within 3 minutes to start the third. 63 yards there to Devonta Smith. Philly takes it 34-28. One high school game tonight between two schools with a combined 11 state titles since 2004. This one all Tippview in the fourth over Orem 41-21. The Utes like their odds of starting a campaign 3-0 for the first time since 2019, but their opposition on Saturday is also unbeaten. In fact, you may recall this time last year, Weber State shocking Utah State up in Logan with a 35-7 upset. The 7th-ranked Wildcats defeating Central Washington and Northern Iowa to start, though Game 3 will have to be executed nearly flawlessly to take down the two-time Pac-12 champs at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Whether Cam Rising is finally ready to go remains to be seen, but if he is not, the freshman who engineered the Baylor comeback, Nate Johnson, will start under center instead. New Weber head coach Mickey Mental told me they've been prepping for 3 different quarterbacks all week to be ready for anything.
I think anytime you can play an opponent that's a Power 5 opponent in an atmosphere and an environment down in Utah, you're excited, and all these guys know those guys because there's a lot of Utah similarities on both teams, so I think they're ready to go and excited for the challenge.
Stay in Ogden for some Pioneer League playoffs. A deciding Game 3 between the Raptors and Rocky Mountain Vibes. Pitchers duel through 6, half a dozen Ks for Ogden starter Brock Gilliam, who did not get any run support till late. It started with a bases-loaded walk. In comes Juan Teixeira. The Raptors take it 3-1 in the series, 2-1, advancing into the championship set. And the Fortinet Championship underway from California. Zach Blair with a solid first round, ending a stretch of 5 straight birdies on the back 9 today. The BYU Blood with a round of 6 under par to sit in a tie for third. We're right back.
Thanks for watching Fox 13 News at 9.
QuickCast is next.